welcome to my new YouTube channel, Artful Badgering. My name is Sebastianne, and I do historical recreation in the SCA. One of the things that I do in the SCA is scribal arts, where artists called scribes attempt to recreate historical manuscripts. We call this Illumination and Calligraphy. Illumination is the drawing and painting, whereas calligraphy is the writing of text in artistic scripts. When I first started, I had so many questions. What products are the best and why? What should I stay away from? How do I use certain products? So I thought I'd take some time today and show everyone what's in my Scribal kit. I'll talk about what I like and what I work with, as well as what I don't like and what I wouldn't recommend. However, that being said, everyone has their own skills and creative processes, so what works for me may not work for others. I'll begin by showing what paints I use. The most historically accurate and readily available commercially produced product that scribes use is called gouache. That's spelled Gouache. It's similar to a watercolor but contains more pigment, so it's less transparent. You can find gouache in most craft stores. The two sets I'm showing you here, I can't remember exactly where I purchased them, but the brand names are Savoir Faire and Fine Touch. I used both of these and I've had no issue with them. I've also used the Rousse brand before and it's performed just fine as well, though it's likely the least expensive brand you can purchase. I've also used Holbein and I think it's quite lovely. Honestly, the difference in look is very slight. However, what I have noticed is that the difference in performance is what justifies the extra money. You're going to pay a lot more for Holbein paints. If you're just getting started, experiment with something more disposable and less expensive. What you do need to watch out for is the color palette. I'll probably do another video discussing an historically accurate color palette, but for now, it's important that your color palette have at least yellow ochre, carmine red, ultramarine blue, black, and white. You'll probably also want to purchase a paint palette with a lid. The good thing about gouache is that you can reconstitute it, meaning that once it's dried, just add water and you can bring it back to life. So there's virtually no waste. The bad part about gouache is that once it dries out, it has a tendency to flake apart. And if your palette doesn't have a lid, little paint flakes will get all over your kit. My palette has a plastic lid, though plastic wrapping your palette will work just fine too. If you're just beginning to use gouache, you'll want to put a pea-sized drop of paint onto the palette and then add 5 drops of water. Continue adding water to the paint until the paint has the consistency of melted ice cream. If you get the paint too thin and watery, it will be transparent. If you get the paint too thick, it will be chunky and hard to spread evenly onto the paper and may flake off. Now let me put away these gouaches and get out my powdered pigments that I bought from Guild Mirandola this past year at Pinzig. These are historically accurate colors, though some of them are made from different substances because of the expense or dangerousness of the historically accurate pigments. For example, you can see that the ultramarine blue is synthetic. In period, this would have been made from lapis lazuli and would have been very costly. You can also see that 2 of my pigments have warning labels because they contain copper and/or lead. This is not something that you want to get on your hands, and especially not something that you want to breathe in your lungs. Therefore, if you're going to play with historically accurate dangerous pigments, I strongly suggest wearing protective gloves and a mask. Also, don't lick your scrolls. If you've played with store-bought gouaches and you feel like you're ready to play with pigments, I'll be uploading a video on this very soon. Now I'm going to show you my favorite part, the metallics. The first, very bright gold, is Ice Tag Gold from Fintech. This dull bronze came in a calligraphy kit that I got in an auction, so I really have no idea what brand it is, though based on the way it behaves, I'm pretty sure it's a lot cheaper than the Fintech. And here's my palette of Gansai, Tambai, and those are all watercolors. I also use gold leaf. These are literally sheets of gold or other metals that are less expensive, which are then placed on top of a binder, which is essentially glue, and then sealed so that they don't flake off. These gold sheets are most historically accurate, though in period sometimes gold would be finely ground and then mixed with mercury. However, for obvious reasons, we don't do that today. I'll also be uploading a video demonstrating the different golds that I use and then ranking them based on their performance and appearance. Here are my inks, and they're from Callie & Company. I have 5: platinum, copper, old gold, garnet, and sapphire. I also have a large bottle of Higgins ink in black. This was recommended to me, and I honestly haven't played with many other brands, as I'm pretty happy with this one. Ink can be painted on, but I mostly use it for calligraphy. For most medieval European calligraphy styles, you're going to want to use a pen and nib, or a quill. I have quite the collection of nibs, and it's been a trial to learn how to use them effectively. Honestly, I'm still trying to figure it all out. I don't want to get into too much detail, but if you're going to use these types of nibs, I have 3 suggestions. First, run the nib under a lighter before using them, because many nibs are coated in a thin layer of wax for their protection prior to being sold. It really does make a difference. Second, when you put the nib in the pen, put it around the outside ring in the pen. Don't just stick it straight down into the center where it looks like it probably should go. It'll be all wobbly and probably fall out while you're writing. Lastly, practice an entire alphabet before you start doing a scroll or other important project. So while I fight to get this nib into the pen, off screen and slightly out of focus, I'll talk to you a little bit about paper, which I forgot to include in this video, because I keep my paper in a separate kit. The quality of paper is what I think really matters most to the final product. In period, they would have used parchment or vellum. These are the skins of animals stretched thinly and then trimmed to a paper size, depending on the size of the manuscript they're going in. They're very strong and resilient. However, today we have other options that are less expensive and more animal friendly. Personally, I use Arches. It comes in many different sizes, and the most important thing is that you get the 140-pound paper. Pounds refers to the weight of the paper. It needs to be thick so that the paint doesn't cause the paper to buckle or deform. It should also be hot press. Unfortunately, hot press paper is harder to find in craft stores than cold press paper, so you might have to order hot press. The difference is in the smoothness of the surface. Cold press is harder to do calligraphy on because it's more bumpy. You can also get a synthetic vellum, but it should be a heavy vellum. One brand that I can suggest is Pergamonata. I think Pergamonata comes in 3 weights if I remember correctly, and you'll probably want to get the 100-pound unless there's something heavier out there that I'm not aware of. I've used a lighter weight vellum before, and once I put the paint on it, it rolled up. So remember, the weight of the paper definitely matters. Okay, now back to talking about calligraphy pens. I have some calligraphy markers here. They are angled or flat-tipped felt pens that act like calligraphy pens without having to use nibs and dipping ink. These are great to practice with. Just make sure that whatever brand you get, if you intend on using them on scrolls or other projects, that they are archival ink, or otherwise noted that they're going to be long-lasting. You don't want your art piece looking like a receipt left in a hot car after a year or 2. Moving on, here's my transparent ruler. I love this because I can see through it, which is very helpful when making borders. It also has markings on the side and a grid pattern, so I don't have to continually turn the ruler back and forth. I can't stress how helpful these features really are. You can really use any straight edge, but I highly recommend a transparent architect's ruler. This one is Westcott brand. You can also get these templates that I use, such as this one, which are very helpful when drawing simple shapes without having to take the time to measure them out repeatedly. Lastly, here are my pencils, pens, and brushes. I keep a very fine-tip leaded mechanical pencil and a fine-tip ballpoint pen in my Scribal kit. I primarily use the fine-tip ballpoint pen with graphite paper. I also keep a menagerie of micron pens of different sizes. The micron graphic pens are useful to sketch out my initial drawings on scrap paper and then to trace them onto my scroll. I like using red or pink because it's easier to see. Microns come in different sizes, and I found that I most frequently use the .005 size. These are very, very fine, but useful for outlining the border of your Scribal designs once you've painted them. For brushes, I primarily use fine and short watercolor brushes. I usually get them when they're on sale and keep a number of the size 10-aught, which is expressed or written as 10/0. Really, it's a personal preference for what is most comfortable for you, but paintbrushes can be really cheap or fairly pricey. I would recommend something in the middle. When you're getting brushes, look for ones that say they're for watercolor. Brushes used for oil paint and acrylic tend to be a little too stiff for gouache. That's it. Thank you for watching. I'll be uploading future content, including sewing tutorials and Scrabble videos, so please subscribe and click on the notifications button if you'd like to be notified when future videos are uploaded. For more information, please visit my website, www.artfulbadgering.com. Have a great day.